Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Fred Storey. I'm the manager of community transportation at New Jersey Transit, and I've been involved with our bike locker program for a number of years. And now we're expanding into bike shelters as we see demand increasing. Next slide, please. New Jersey Transit currently has over 350 bike lockers statewide at 35 rail locations. Some of these lockers have been in place since the mid-1990s. There is a $7.50 monthly fee billed at 6-month intervals and a $50 refundable key deposit. Historically, the usage rate is 60 to 70% with a waiting list at some locations. Bikes are protected from the elements, and we've never had a bike stolen. Lockers are owned by New Jersey Transit and manufactured by CycleSafe. Administration and minor maintenance is done by our partners, the Transportation Management Associations. Next slide, please. The New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition is a nonprofit organization with bike shelters at 4 rail stations, including Bloomfield, Elizabeth, Montclair, and Summit. Participants are mailed a key fob for entry. Each shelter holds over 20 bikes and scooters, and the monthly cost is $15 to $20. Pictured is a Bloomfield shelter. As you can see with the shelters, you can walk in and lock your bike in addition to the locked door. Shelters can be more efficient use of space as it is first come, first served, and dozens of people can sign up for the program at each location. Some of the funding for these shelters comes from Partners in Health Foundation based in Montclair. There's also revenue from advertising. Next slide, please. Uni is a bike shelter company headquartered in Brooklyn. Shelters are accessible with a smartphone or key card. Shelters accommodate over 20 bikes and scooters and are expandable. Uni relies on advertising revenue, and there is currently no cost to customers. Another benefit is video surveillance. Many of the shelters are battery powered with solar panels recharging them. Uni is working with Jersey City and has installed bike shelters there. Uni provides full service from installation, administration, maintenance, monthly reports to snow removal. New Jersey Transit will be partnering with Uni to expand our bike locker program to include bike shelters. Candidate locations for bike shelters include Newark Branch Brook Park and Hoboken 2nd Street light rail stations, as well as Newark Penn Station, Rawway, and Red Bank rail stations. Many commuters use station bikes that are inexpensive or worn out for commuting. Secure bike parking encourages commuters to use their nicer bikes to ride to the station and increases the radius that people ride. I don't have a slide for it, but I want to share a summary of a survey my New Jersey Transit colleagues conducted recently. Many cyclists do not feel safe riding with traffic. Many respondents said they live within 3 miles of a train station, so bicycling is a possibility. Most respondents said they would walk or bike up to 1 mile to a New Jersey Transit rail station or bus stop. Improved crosswalks and sidewalks would encourage bicycling and walking. Respondents like the idea of a scooter or a bicycle share program. The largest challenges include the lack of bicycle lanes, secure parking, traffic, weather, driver behavior, roadway conditions, and lighting. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Fred. Before we move on, we'll take questions at the end. Why don't we go ahead and move on to Paul, and Paul, you can share your screen to talk about that, and then we can do questions at the end. How's that sound?
Great. Well, first, I'm just going to put our link in the chat there, and wanted to bring you to our New Jersey Bike Walk Coalition website. So thank you, Fred, for covering the bike depots as well. So if you go to our njbwc.org website and go up to programs, you will see bike depots. And we have several. And as Fred said, they range in $15 for Elizabeth and Bloomfield for a month and $20 in Montclair. We have several sites. And one of the things that's really cool is that aside from having these depots that are protected, you will see people parking, outside the depots as well. And something that I've become aware of is that it's not just transit related parking. So these bike depots are located in transit hubs at train station, parking decks at train stations or right next to train stations. And they are often quite close to apartment houses. Housing is such a big issue. We see it exploding all over the state, and it's difficult to house your bike in, small, tighter housing. So particularly in our Bloomfield site, we have a lot of people that use it because they live there and they just park their bike there. So at any rate, we have the website where you can go and sign up. You can sign up for a monthly or an annual fee. We have the Bloomfield site, Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is a little bit different. You see some of these racks are vertical oriented, a little bit different than Montclair, which was the first one back in 2014. And we are waiting on final construction for our Summit site, which will be a standalone site as opposed to being in the building of a parking deck. But they are great for safeguarding your bikes, weather protected. In Montclair, we even have a little locker for people who might want to leave some extra things there. But we would just simply, love to see more people take advantage of them. And you can sign up online and you get a key fob. I'll mail one out to you. And you can also, if you want, there is a universal membership. So you can get a key fob that would open all of the bike depots. That's pretty much it. So I did, well, here we go. There's our link to the website if you are interested in going to that. And as I mentioned, the bike parking is just becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And it's a need that it's coming onto my mind for overnight parking for those apartment dwellers to have easier access, particularly with bigger, heavier bikes like electric bikes. So thank you for including us, Leanne.
Yeah, no, I think, we who bicycle a lot, we crave safe, secure bicycle parking. And those of us who are using more micromobility options as well, including scooters and stuff. So there's a couple of questions in chat, but I wonder if, Fred or Paul, are you seeing more other types of folks like e-scooters and stuff interested in your
Certainly
facility?
see e-scooters, yes. See e-scooters, and yes, the Partner for Health funding was startup, not for ongoing operations. And we don't have the pricing structure advertised on the sites, but coming soon will be QR codes. There's something we didn't start with, but we will add that. So make it a little easier for people to connect as they walk by and see, oh, okay, let me see what we have there.
Okay, let me go through some of the questions. I know, Fred, you started to answer some of them, but I think it's worth asking. So Fred, Linda was asking a little bit about how does a station get considered for a bike shelter? You said that they're chosen based on bicycle activities, or anything to elaborate on that?
And I have a question on that
Sure,
also after Fred talks.
You got it, Linda, go ahead.
So Fred, my question is very specifically, and Fred, you're muted. My question very specifically is Somerville Station, which fell under the chopping block of new development, which is great for the area, but it removed the bicycle activity because it removed the lockers. So now we have like 5 new housing elements, a very robust station, and an opportunity to put a great bicycle storage facility there. And that's my specific ask.
Okay, yeah, that's something we can look into. We are interested in expanding. The 5 stations that I listed were based on current demand. In some cases, it's the a waiting list for a bike locker. But in other cases, just the number of bicycles being used at bike racks. But you know, that's Somerville is certainly a location we can consider going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Mike Viscardi, can you just elaborate on your comment real quick about the solar technology and your concerns or issues or information?
The current program that Fred's describing, the technology is really just to operate the mechanism of the shelter itself, the lock, etc. I'm currently working on a solar bus shelter program, which is a little bit different than this, but going through the process, it's the same type of limitations on the type of panels that are going on to the structure, have very limiting capabilities. All that being said, you know, down the road, if we ever get into advertising or conduit and things like that, then you got an energy source beyond solar. Maybe you could do more things like, you know, have plug-in for charging bikes. But the current program that we have, again, from my experience with the solar bus shelters, is that it just wouldn't have that kind of capacity. Down the road, yes, certainly, you know, you can certainly have other ways of energizing the structure.
And for
Is that
those
right, Fred? Did I describe that okay, Fred? I mean, you've been working with Uni.
Yeah, that's true. It's well, in the case of Uni, they run on batteries primarily to access the door. You know, it'd be unlocking the door with your smartphone. If you don't have a smartphone, it is possible to unlock it with a key card that can be. So there's limited power behind the batteries. The batteries are replaceable, but they're generally recharged with solar panels. So that's a consideration for placement. Also, that used with the batteries is some LED lighting inside the shelter itself. So that, you know, there's a decent amount of power within these batteries.
And just to be clear, Mike Viscardi is also with New Jersey Transit, for those who might not know Mike. So just Mike and Fred work together. So this is great. Thanks for the information. And I think we're seeing, you know, if you want to see an interesting pilot for e-bike charging e-bikes and housing and transit, New York City has their Charge Safe, Ride Safe strategic plan or program. It's one or the other. So you can look that up and see as something that I think is going to start being a model for the rest of the country. But it's still burgeoning. So we'll see how that.
Yeah, I want to throw one other thing out there since we're on the subject. Probably mentioned this in the past as well. Along with what Fred's doing, we're trying to get NEPA approval for bike shelters. And what we're trying to do as part of that process is work with FTA to make it programmatic, as we have with our bus shelter program, so that we don't have to go through a long process to install these at some stations. And there's going to be some of the historic stations we're still working through, but we're using federal money, so we do have to get NEPA approval. And again, getting back to any type of grant with, you know, shovel ready. If it's federal money, make sure you have your ducks in order for the for NEPA because you're going to need it, and it takes some time.
Just for those who might not know what NEPA is, it's the federal requirement for environmental. It's like the National Environmental
Protection
Protection Act.
policy, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it includes historic preservation, and sometimes that can be a hiccup for adding in new bus shelters, or other shelters.
Yeah.
So good, thanks, Mike. We have a bunch of other questions, so let's go through them. The next one is, Paul, you mentioned Partners for Health help provided some seed and startup, not necessarily ongoing operations and maintenance. Is that something the fees are helping to pay for, or is there are you looking for further funding?
I will defer to Deborah on that because I'm not quite sure, so I'm not going to dance.
Go
Thanks,
ahead,
Paul. Each of the bike depots actually had separate funding. It's all been private funding. We do not use advertising, just an FYI, to fund those bike depots. It is for capital development only, and the idea is that the fees will sustain the maintenance part. So it is not a high revenue enterprise, but we do use the monthly fees and yearly fees for maintenance, and
So
all
that
of them have maintenance.
That kind of leads into the next question about like, does that mean you have an agreement with New Jersey Transit for use of the property for their? This could be for you guys or for other projects like Uni. Like this is something you're in agreement with New Jersey Transit, and jump in if I'm not getting your question correct.
That's it. And then of course, I'm always thinking about, should we be incentivizing municipalities to help in supporting these kinds of facilities in certain locations? So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, we do agreements with New Jersey Transit and with the city. So for instance, with Summit, the city will be part of the sponsorship. The actual capital comes from philanthropy usually. And yes, we have an agreement with transit. At least, at least on the space. Yeah, and so can I just ask, sorry, I just wanted clarification, Mike and Fred. I know that New Jersey Transit was looking to put an RFP out for new bike shelters and transit stations, and I'm just curious if that is the agreement with Uni. Is that, and how many stations there were for that?
Oh, the original, well, there are two RFPs. The first one, we've reached an agreement with Uni for 5 locations. And then there is an RFP that is in process with up to 12 additional locations. So those are still being determined.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Do the municipalities help also promote like how to sign up to get membership and that sort of thing, or is there an opportunity to work with the municipalities closer on that?
I think
Yeah,
there's
we definitely want to work closely with the municipalities. In each of these cases to just expedite the program, we've specified New Jersey Transit properties. So all these locations would be on our property, but we would certainly include the municipalities for all kinds of marketing and partnerships.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Fred, do you have the ability to put into chat the stations, the first 5 stations where Unis are going to be installed? There's already the one in Jersey City, but if you could list those, or Mike, somebody, I think your slide went by too quickly, and we're going to post them on our website when we're done, so people can go back. But if you wouldn't mind,
Sure.
I think that's also. This is a group that can also does a lot of talking to those who are interested. Like this is something to get out to the bike clubs who maybe also have members who bicycle or take other micromobility to stations, and to help get the word out about using these facilities. So I think this is exciting to see some new interest around more bike and micromobility parking at stations. I guess we're kind of getting close to where we need to go into our breakout groups. So, and there's a lot of questions here. So I would ask maybe Fred and Mike and Paul and Deb, if you could look through the questions in chat and see if there's anything else you can answer. Some of them you already did. I think there's one in particular looking at more specifically how you track bike use at stations, and kind of curious how that works. And I think that's probably a more involved answer, unless you have a quick answer for that now.
Well, just a quick answer. We do not have time limits at this point in time, but and I think that's because the capacity is there. But if we do get to the point where people are storing them, 24/7, we'll need to consider that.
Right.
And
Oh,
we track memberships. So that's what we're tracking. I guess
Great.
Just
anecdotally, bikes.
Go ahead, Peter.
Just a quick note that both of the New Jersey Transit UNI RFPs were funded by NJTPA dollars, where we had approached New Jersey Transit with an opportunity with some funding that we had available, looking for a partnership where we could fund something that supports bicycling, and determined that this is a good opportunity. And then since then, Transit's been great on taking the lead and finding the locations and handling the RFPs. But we were partners with them on getting that started.
That's great.
Yeah,
I
they're both federal funded projects, but they're different grants. But yes, NJTPA has been great with working out the agreement, so to put the money in place. Sorry.
No, that's great. I think we're all kind of looking for this first phase of, right now it's UNI, could be others, and looking for how that goes. And if there's, I'm sure there'll be interest in this group of a check-in to see, what were the challenges, what worked, what might not have worked, so that we can see more of this across the state. Because I know there's a lot of interest, and we're seeing micromobility, especially e-bikes and e-scooters start to really, we're seeing a lot of new people picking those types of devices up that might not have been, as who wouldn't consider themselves a bicyclist, in the past. So I think this is really exciting, and the whole charging thing, I know is a complicated issue, but Mike Manzella from Jersey City pointed out that the UNI in Jersey City does allow you to charge your e-bikes there and e-scooters there. Oh, and John Boyle's putting in about, we're excited about the North Jersey, but what about the River Line in South Jersey? So, is that Central? No, I think that's South. Go ahead, John.
No, I do think that bike storage is a huge issue on the River Line, and also the Paco high speed line. But there seems to be some, they've done some work there, the Bridge Authority. But yeah, I think the Atlantic City line and the River Line need some help. I mean, my kid's bike was vandalized 3 times, finally got stolen. And so we have this wave rack. It's got the camera, and like, yeah, the guy stole it on the camera. And you also have to go up to Trenton. I go up to Trenton to I don't want to turn this into a bitch session, but I'm supposed to go to Camden, but I went to Trenton, and they said you should go to Camden, but we'll fill out the report anyway. Anyway, so it needs to be addressed, and I think it's part of the reason why we see so many bikes and scooters on the trains, and that's great, but it also represents a crowding problem with this equipment shortage that they're having now. We're getting trains like every 30 minutes instead of every 15 minutes. And yeah, so it's definitely a challenge. We don't have the longer trains anymore. We are able to kind of distribute the bikes more evenly.
Okay, good. Yeah, I hear you, John. And I was just on a really busy weekend train the other day, and there were definitely people getting on with scooters and bikes, and it was a challenge to, it was allowable, was in that time period where they did allow bikes and scooters, and they were folding, and it was really crowded to get those people and their devices on the crowded trains. So
Leanne, I don't know if anyone has these numbers off the top of their head for some perspective, but I believe when you break down the cost of each space of a parking deck, the per parking space cost is probably close to what it costs to put a bike depot in.
I don't think Jack Molinar is on this call, but he told me a few years ago that the new parking deck at Rutgers was $55,000 per space.
There you
That
go.
sounds about right.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm making the same argument with the Henry Hudson Trail and how many, you know, bikes would be used to get to the train station. And surface parking alone is 20,000 a space with all the regulations these days. So absolutely, micromobility, first and last miles is needs to be more in the forefront on our end. And, you know, obviously everybody here is, you know, we're preaching to the choir, but we've recognized that for some time. It's just trying to get things moving. It's we'd love to do South Jersey too, you know, but the grant money is for North, you know, NJTPA area. But yes, we certainly can identify places in South Jersey. Patco is a good example. The light rail. We're aware. It's just a matter of getting things in place. And
Well-
thankfully for the other organization installing it where they can, I will say on behalf of them, trying to get that project to Summit was a long ordeal, and at the end of it, there was, you know, building issues as well, you know, like permit issues. So it's not just as simple as plopping something down. We wish it was, but there's a lot of things you got to do to get it moving.